Well, hello. My name is Masuli, and I'd like to tell you a story from the Book of God. And the title of the story is The Capture of the Special Chest. And the story goes like this. As God had promised, he brought his people, the descendants of Abraham, into the land that he had promised to their ancestors. God began to divide the land amongst the tribes. But not all the tribes obeyed God and took possession of the land. Some of the tribes began to compromise with their enemies. They intermarried with them. They began to worship their gods to seek their blessing. Now, in those days, the Israelites had these tribal leaders that were called judges to rule over them. Now, the Israelites had not always followed God or honored the sacred agreement. Even the sons of the chief priest, who themselves were priests, were wicked men. They didn't respect God. They didn't respect their father. When sacrifices were being offered to God, they often took large portions for themselves. Now, also in those days, the Israelites had this fierce enemy called the Philistines. And one day, they went into battle with the Philistines. And the Philistines attacked them and defeated them, killing 4,000 Israelite soldiers in that battle. And the elders of the Israelites asked, why has God allowed this? And instead of crying out to God and seeking his guidance, they responded like the idol worshippers around them. They said, if we can bring the special chest of God that represents his presence into the battlefield, we will have victory. And so they did. They brought the special chest of God into the battlefield. And when it arrived in the Israelite military camp, the Israelite soldiers cheered and shouted, for they thought they will win. And so the Philistine army heard this, and they were afraid. They said, they have brought their gods to the battlefield, and their gods are very powerful. They are the gods who rescued them from Egypt, causing many plagues there. We must fight them hard. And so the Philistines did. They fought the Israelites hard on that day and defeated them, and killing 30,000 Israelite soldiers, including the two disrespectful sons of the chief priest. Their father had brought the special chest of God to the battlefield without seeking God's permission. And the Philistines captured the special chest. And so a messenger was sent back to town to tell the chief priest of what had happened, to tell him of the deaths and the slaughter that had taken place in the battlefield, that his two sons had died in battle, and that the special chest was captured by the Philistines. And when he heard this report, the old priest fell over and died. And so the Philistines took the special chest of God to their town, and they put it in their temple. They put it beside the idol of their God. And when they came into the temple the next day, the idol of their God had fallen face down in front of the special chest. And they took the idol of their God and put it upright. When they came the next morning, the idol of their God had fallen face down in front of the special chest of God again. And this time, his head and his hands were broken off. And so God punished the Philistine people of that town where the special chest of God was being kept. He struck them with skin growths like tumors. And when the people realized this, they cried and said, we cannot keep the special chest of the God of Israel here. He is against us. We will all be destroyed along with our gods. And so they sent it to another Philistine town. But the people of that town began to have the same disease. And so they took it to another Philistine town. And the people of that town refused to take it. but they too became sick. And so finally, the Philistine army took the special chest of God and put it on a cart, and they sent it back to Israel. And it stayed in that town for 20 years. Meanwhile, the Israelites were crying and mourning, for they felt like God had abandoned them. And then their new judge, Samuel, said to them, if you are serious about returning to God, get rid of the idols to your other gods and turn to God. And so the people did. They confessed their sins to God and they asked Him for forgiveness. And God forgave them and even gave them victory over their enemies, the Philistines. And this is the story of God from the book of God.